Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Dallin Anderson and today we are going to be talking about the Philosopher's Stone. So a lot of times people have heard about the Philosopher's Stone, but people don't really know what it really means. Obviously, there's anime shows, there's TV shows, movies, all kinds of stuff throughout media, television, whatever, books that includes the Philosopher's Stone. So it is kind of something that's in the minds of people. And a lot of people don't know what the Philosopher's Stone truly is. So today we are going to be talking about the real and true Philosopher's Stone. So it should be really awesome. And hopefully you guys can learn something good, be able to take it and apply it into your own lives, and then to use that knowledge to go ahead and change everything about your life. So in essence, the Philosopher's Stone is often portrayed as an actual object that has mystical power, that's infused with that power. For example, like an actual stone, and generally people draw it as blue, but as red, but we'll just use blue today. Okay, so you've got this stone, right? And people view the Philosopher's Stone as a physical object that's infused with mystical energy. So this is the idea of the Philosopher's Stone that is kind of common in books, in movies, in TV shows, the idea of a physical stone. But really, the Philosopher's Stone goes way, way back to probably ancient Egypt, but I can't tell you exactly how far it really goes because we just don't know. But the Philosopher's Stone, what I will tell you, is not a physical object. So the Philosopher's Stone is not a physical object infused with mystical energy. The true Philosopher's Stone is actually a philosophical concept. So the true Philosopher's Stone is a philosophical concept. It's a principle. So let's go ahead and learn about that principle. It's not a physical object, contrary to TV shows, books, movies, right? Contrary to common belief, the Philosopher's Stone is not a physical stone you can go get. Now, if you haven't ever heard of the Philosopher's Stone before, it's basically able to produce infinite energy, right? So in alchemy, there's this truth that everything costs energy. Nothing comes for free. So there's a cost for everything. So in order to transmute the base metal into gold, it costs chemicals, compounds. It's not free to do that, right? It costs energy, it costs compounds in order to convert one material to a more purified or maybe a more valuable material. So the Philosopher's Stone is this concept where it gives infinite energy. So instead of needing to have the correct materials to convert silver into gold or copper into gold, the Philosopher's Stone conceptually is this idea that it has infinite power in it. So you don't need the gold you don't need the compounds to convert the metal into gold because the Philosopher's Stone will pay the price, right, for that transaction, that conversion to take place. So It's a philosophical concept. Obviously, it's not a real object. I can't go mine a philosopher's stone from some cave and then come back and be like, guys, I have this rock. Now I can do anything I want to. Right? That's not a real thing. But what is a real thing is the philosophical concept, because the philosopher's stone is truly a metaphor. So let's talk about what that metaphor is about. So it's not a physical stone, you guys. Instead, the philosopher's stone is a truth. It's a principle that governs reality. So, that principle, when correctly understood, gives you that same power that metaphorical philosopher's stone would give somebody in a book, in a movie, in an anime show, right? Full Metal Alchemist, maybe you've seen Full Metal Alchemist. That physical stone gives people the power to do things without requiring the necessary energy to do it, because the stone pays the price, right? Because everything costs something. You can't get something for nothing. There's a cost to everything, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too. So the idea of the philosopher's stone is that it's infinite energy, so you can have your cake and eat it too. That's the concept, right? So the other way that often people view that philosopher's stone is that everything you touches turns to gold. Okay, that's another kind of metaphorical way of looking at the philosopher's stone. Instead of this thing that has infinite energy, so you can do things that would normally cost something you don't want to trade to get something you do want, another way to look at the philosopher's stone is everything it touches turns to gold. Right? Because the whole idea of the philosopher's stone, it's a metaphorical concept for turning the base metal into gold. Whatever the base metal is, whatever your base metal that you're working with. So, the idea of transmutation, being able to take silver or bronze or whatever you're working with and transmute it into gold, right? Now, the ancient alchemists would do this. They actually did transmute physical metals into other physical metals. But the philosopher's stone is a philosophy. That's why it's called the philosopher's stone. So even though there was physical transmutation going on throughout history, the philosopher's stone is a metaphor for the inner alchemy that goes on inside of a person when they observe this truth. So let's talk about what that truth is. Right? Because if it's not an object, if it's a philosophical truth, then in order for you to be able to turn anything into gold in your life, symbolically speaking, you have to understand this truth, right? You need to understand what the philosopher's stone is. So I'm going to give you guys the secret today. You know, a lot of times people don't get as direct as I'm going to get with you guys today, but I will get very direct with you and tell you what the philosopher's stone is. So, what the philosopher's stone is. As within, so without. This is the philosopher's stone. or at least one aspect of the Philosopher's Stone. But this is probably one of the most important aspects of the Philosopher's Stone, and just understanding this one truth will be able to give you enough knowledge to symbolically convert any bad situation in your life into a good situation. So, yeah. I'm getting a phone call right now, so I'm going to go ahead. Hey, what's up? I'm in the middle of recording a video for my channel, so I'll call you right back in a second, all right?
All right.
Cool.
Okay, bye.
Peace. So this principle, as within, so without, is a universal principle or law of life. This basically encompasses most of what you need to know, at least in this video, about the Philosopher's Stone. So here I have the Gospel of Thomas. Now this is apocryphal text, so technically not everything in here is going to be completely accurate, but there is stuff in here which is true, and we're going to go ahead and read from that. So in here, we read in the Gospel of Thomas in verse 23, we read, Jesus said to them, when you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside, and the outside like the inside, and the above like the below, and the male and the female one in the same. Now, I'm not going to read the whole verse here, but what I want you to pay attention to is these verses. When you make the inside like the outside, or these words, not verses. When you make the inside like the outside, right? And the outside like the inside. Now, if we go back here to our whiteboard, Jesus said if you make the outside like the inside and the inside like the outside. Well, what do we learn about this principle? Doesn't that sound a lot like as within, so without? That's because it is. That is the same principle that Jesus is teaching in the Gospel of Thomas. Now, in the Holy Bible, if you take the Holy Bible and you read in the Holy Bible, you'll find Jesus Christ say, the kingdom isn't here or there, but the kingdom is within, right? Well, you get the full translation or the full version of that in the Gospel of Thomas. And we can read that here in the beginning verse, which actually is very similar. It says, rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. Not going to read the whole verse, but that's in verse 3 of the Coptic Gospel of Thomas. So, the Philosopher's Stone is not a physical object, it's a principle of truth. That principle of truth is that those things that we hold within us are manifested in our outside world. And the way that we react to our circumstances and our situation inside of us will then create what happens in the future. So if you have some really bad thing happening to you in your life, you have some outward cause, something that's really hard to and difficult to deal with, how you respond inwardly to that thing is going to greatly determine what your life is going to look like in the future, right? Are you going to take this bad thing and are you going to transmute that bad thing into an even worse thing? Or are you going to transmute that bad thing into gold? That's what the Philosopher's Stone is. The transmutation of base metal into gold, right? Well, if bad things happen to you in your life, you can respond inside of you differently than what somebody would normally respond. And instead of freaking out, instead of having a bad attitude about the situation, instead of trying to, see it as some terrible thing, instead you take this thing that's happening and you figure out, how can I benefit from this, right? How can I become better? What can I learn from this? What can I use this for to drive me? How can I let this drive me for self-improvement? So everybody has bad things happening to them, right? In life, everybody has things that happen to them that are outside of their control. Sometimes they are, not all the time. But these bad things are happening, and everybody has bad things happening to them, but it's up to us individually to choose how we respond to those bad things, right? So even though everybody is always experiencing outward things that on varying degrees are difficult to deal with, not everybody reacts inwardly the same way. So this is the Philosopher's Stone. Something bad is happening in your life. It's not about that bad thing that's happening to you. It's about how you respond to it within and without, right? How you feel about it inwardly, the attitude that you take on the situation, the way that you feel about it, whether you take time to think and solve the problem, or whether you let the problem become something that controls you, right? Those are all things that are happening inside of you. But also how you address the problem, how you move forward, right? Those are things happening outside of you. So the Philosopher's Stone is principles of philosophy that don't change. That's what it really is. And it doesn't matter if you have taken the time to study pretty much any person throughout history that has done something significant for the world, something that's good for the world. A lot of times you'll hear them say, well, you need to go within, right? You'll hear people say that their growth came from within. So pretty much the people that were able to influence reality in a positive way, you're always going to find these people are using this principle, whether they're conscious or not of using it. Because I don't care who you are, you're going to have bad things happen to you. But who you are will change how you respond to it. So even though bad things might happen to you, who you are inside of you is going to be how you're able to either take that bad thing and have that bad thing ruin your life, or take that bad thing and have that bad thing be the very thing that drives you to success. That's the difference. So, as we're able to change what's inside of us, our outside world does change. So it doesn't matter if we're getting thrown mud, bronze, silver, anything that's thrown at us, because of what's inside of us, it all turns to gold. It all turns to gold. In the Bible, it says that all things will work together for the good of those who love God. I'm paraphrasing. It might be fear or serve. I can't remember what word it is. But basically, all things will work together for your good. But you have to believe that. If you don't believe it, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to give up. When a bad thing happens, you're going to take it personally instead of realizing that it's an opportunity to transmute that situation from a bad thing into a good thing. So what's inside of you is going to greatly determine what happens to you throughout exterior events. So as those external events occur to you and happen to you, what's inside of you is going to greatly determine whether those events make or break you as a person. Because really, like I said, there isn't a single person in life that doesn't have things happening to them that are difficult, that are hard, that take thought, that take time to solve. So why is one person more successful and happy than another person? It's because of the Philosopher's Stone. Whether they're aware of it or they're not aware of it, the person that's happy is able to take these bad things that are happening to them, these bad outward effects, outward causes, and transmute them into positive things, right? They're able to change the way they look at it. They're able to change the way they see the problem. And also what they hold inside of them is like gold, right? They're happy, they have a good attitude, they have a good internal state. And that internal state is so strong that anything that comes into your life to try to make you weaker just gets turned to gold. It just gets transmuted into this beautiful thing that ends up working for your favor and your good. So, as I said, the Philosopher's Stone is not a physical object. The Philosopher's Stone is not something that is fake. It's not just mythology. It's a real thing, but the Philosopher's Stone is symbolic of eternal truth. And when you understand that eternal truth and you properly utilize it, in other words, you understand it and you apply it, when you both understand that it's symbolic of eternal truth and you apply that eternal truth in your life, right? Then you know what's going to happen? You are going to be able to turn anything into gold. Any bad situation that happens in your life, you can turn it from the base metal into gold. So this is what's happening because of what's inside of you, right? That's why you're able to withstand anything. Doesn't matter how big, how small, that thing that happens, you're able to convert it into gold. Because you understand the laws of reality. So, for me, this looks like, okay, well, maybe I make a mistake. It's easy to get down on yourself when you make a mistake. But instead of getting down on yourself, if you say, look how far I've come, look how much progress I've made, right? Then you're able to view the mistake as part of the journey part of the learning process. And you transmute that normally would be shame, right, into joy. Because all of a sudden you realize that you can do better. You don't have to let your mistakes define you. You can overcome, right? You can overcome your mistakes. Look how far I've come. So you're transmuting that base metal, in other words, that negative thought about yourself or that mistake, into something that brings you joy, that pushes you forward, that makes you a better person. So this is the Philosopher's Stone. For me, to be able to do this more effectively, it looks like living a clean life, right? Do the best of my ability to avoid all and anything that's sin. Sin means to miss the mark. It's an archery term. If you have a target, right, and you miss the bullseye, that is sin. So anything in your life where you fall short of what you could have done, of the more holy choice, the more righteous choice, is sin, right? So for me, it looks like doing the best I can to live a clean life. It looks like meditation, right? It looks like prayer. It looks like studying good books. It looks like nature, spending time in nature, right? These are all ways I change what's inside of me. And by changing what's inside of me, I'm able to respond differently to things that happen in my life. Just a few things, right? But you could make a list of things that help you feel good, help you feel connected to God. And as you do those things consistently and deliberately over time, you're going to change what's inside of you, and you yourself will develop that ability to transmute any bad situation into gold. So thank you guys so much for tuning into today's little video. I hope you learned something about the Philosopher's Stone. No, it's not a physical object. Yes, it is real. Yes, Jesus Christ himself talks about these principles. And yes, they can change your life. So thank you so much for tuning in. I love and appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you in future videos. And as always, peace be unto you.